Okay, so we've got a pretty hefty stack of articles here all about building healthy routines for kids,
Yeah.
especially with the new year coming up.
Right.
Um, but I swear, new habits should be its own category, like on WebMD at this point.
It's definitely a hot topic this time of year for sure.
Oh,
Yeah, you're right. It's everywhere. So
it is.
what is it about all of this that has you particularly curious?
Honestly, what really caught my eye in this stack were the articles that kind of go beyond just the kids.
Okay.
Like, it's not just about getting them on a schedule, it's about how these routines that we're building for them actually impact the whole family.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, less chaos in the morning,
Yeah.
that's a win for everybody involved, right?
Absolutely. And, I think it's refreshing to see this approach because it really acknowledges the fact that family life is interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, dictating to our kids what they should be doing or, how they should be behaving. It's really about building this framework that supports everyone's well-being.
Exactly. And so before we get into the nitty-gritty, the how-to of these routines, let's talk about the why.
Okay.
Like, why bother with routines at all? And you shared some research on the benefits for kids.
Right.
And it's more than just, like a clean house and calm mornings, right?
Right. One of the most interesting things that I found when I was looking through these is how routines really tap into a child's need for structure.
Structure. Okay.
And when you think about it, I mean, having that predictable rhythm to their day
Right.
can be incredibly powerful for their emotional development.
So it's like because they know what to expect, it makes them feel safer, more secure,
Yes.
and then they can kind of relax into learning and growing in other areas.
Exactly. And, the research really backs this up.
Oh, wow.
This predictability can lead to better sleep, which we all know is huge.
Huge.
But it can also contribute to healthier eating habits. And some studies even suggest that it can improve mental health by reducing anxiety.
Really?
So it's pretty amazing how much of a difference a little structure can make.
Okay, you've convinced me. Sign me up. But here's the thing. We've all been there, right? With those New Year's resolutions,
Yes.
grandiose plans in January, and by February, it's back to square one.
Right.
So how do we actually set goals, especially, throwing kids into the mix that actually last?
That's where I think these articles got really interesting because they emphasize family-oriented goals. So instead of saying, as an individual, I'm going to work out every day, it's more about let's try as a family to have a game night once a week.
Okay.
So it's really about finding what works for everyone.
So less about individual goals, more about creating healthy habits as a team.
Exactly. And one of the articles even suggested, instead of just saying eat healthier, which we all know is important, involve your kids in the process. So it's like, hey, let's pick out a new fruit or veggie at the store each week.
Oh, that's good.
Making it fun and engaging for them makes a world of difference.
Okay, that's smart. I like that. Speaking of making things fun, let's talk mornings. Because if there is one area I would love a magic wand for, it would be that.
Yeah.
It's getting everybody ready and out the door without me, completely losing my mind.
Of course.
So what did these articles have to say about how to actually tame the morning mayhem?
Well, he has some really practical advice. It might sound a little counterintuitive, but several emphasize consistency, even on the weekends.
Weekends too. So you're saying that sticking to a consistent wake-up time, even on a Saturday, could mean fewer of those grumpy, zombie-eyed mornings?
It's worth a try.
I'm willing to try anything at this point.
Right.
Sign me up as a guinea pig.
So, when you think about it, having that consistent wake-up time, it really does help to regulate your child's internal clock.
Okay.
And beyond just the wake-up time, having that predictable morning routine
Yeah.
can really work wonders.
Yeah.
Breakfast, getting dressed, brushing teeth, all of those things are always going to happen.
Right.
It's just about, creating that consistent order that they can expect and involving them in the process. So they're learning those life skills early on.
Okay. That makes sense. But let's be real. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, chaos still happens,
Yeah.
Lost shoes, forgotten permission, slipped. I mean,
Yeah. The usual.
the usual. Exactly. So any advice for those mornings when it feels like everything's going sideways?
Well, one of the articles I thought had a surprisingly simple suggestion.
Okay.
Mindfulness.
Okay.
Yeah, just taking a few minutes of, deep breathing or some stretching together can really make a world of difference.
Really?
It sounds almost too easy, but honestly, even just those few minutes of calm can really shift the energy of the morning for both you and the kids.
Ooh, I like that, like a little family yoga session before the day gets going.
Exactly.
Okay, I can totally see how that would be grounding.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot about routines, but I have to admit, like, I always worry about being too rigid,
Right.
because kids are kids
Okay.
and they thrive on like spontaneity and, just kind of going with the flow. So how do you find that balance?
That's a really common concern. And the goal here is not to be a drill sergeant,
Right.
right? It's really about finding that balance.
Okay.
And, the articles really emphasize that life happens.
Right.
Things come up.
Mm.
And it's okay to deviate from the plan sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
the important thing is just to try to get back to the routine as soon as you can.
So it's like having a roadmap as opposed to like driving on autopilot.
Exactly.
Like you might have to, take a detour, but generally you know where you're headed.
Exactly. And, speaking of things that can derail even the best laid plans,
Oh, yeah.
those articles about family dinners really resonated with me. How about you?
Oh, big time. Total nostalgia trip.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, beyond just the warm fuzzies, what do the experts say about the actual benefits of
Huh.
making time for family dinners?
Well, it turns out that those warm fuzzies are actually backed by some pretty compelling science.
Yeah.
Studies have actually linked regular family meals to all sorts of great outcomes for kids.
Like what?
Things like improved academic performance,
Yeah.
healthier eating habits.
Really?
It's really pretty incredible.
So just from having dinner together?
I know, it seems wild, right?
It does.
But the research suggests that shared time together, even if it's just for 20 minutes at the dinner table, can make a real difference. And I think it's about the connection, the communication, the opportunity to just be present with each other. No phones, no screens, just good old-fashioned conversation.
Right. Just being present in the moment,
Exactly.
which is so rare these days.
It really is. And, beyond those, the academic and the emotional benefits, family meals can also lead to healthier eating habits for kids.
So interesting.
When families eat together, they tend to, make healthier food choices overall.
So more family dinners could mean more adventurous eaters.
Potentially. Yes.
I am here for that. Were there any tips in those articles about how to make those family meals a little less stressful and a little more enjoyable?
Sure.
Because let's be honest, some nights it just feels like a race to the finish line.
Right. One article actually suggested, get the kids involved in the meal planning and the preparation.
Okay.
I know it sounds messy,
It does sound a little messy.
but the idea is that when kids help choose the food and make the food, they're way more likely to actually try it.
Oh, that's smart.
Plus, it's just a fun activity to do together as a family.
Oh, I love that idea. I bet my kids would have so much fun helping out in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm officially on board with the family dinner campaign.
Good.
But even with a good dinner routine, evenings can still be hectic. There's
Yeah.
homework and bath time and bedtime, like the list goes on and on.
It does.
So any tips on how to kind of navigate those post-dinner hours without, completely losing our minds?
Well, this is where a really solid bedtime routine comes in.
Okay.
And just like with mornings, predictability and consistency are key.
Okay, so setting a regular bedtime and sticking to it as much as possible can really help regulate your child's sleep-wake cycle.
Okay, so it makes it easier for them to fall asleep.
Exactly. And we all know what that means. Well-rested kids, happier parents, a more peaceful morning. It's like a domino effect.
I love a good domino
Yeah.
effect, especially when it ends in a good night's sleep for everybody.
Exactly.
Okay, you've sold me on consistent bedtimes, but what about those kids who fight sleep like their lives depend on it? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I have one of those, it's like the minute bedtime rolls around, they suddenly have all the energy in the world.
Yeah, one of the things that I came across in these articles that I thought was really interesting was this idea of creating like a winding down period about an hour or two before bed.
Okay.
So things like dimming the lights, turning off screens, basically anything that can help signal to their brains that it's time to start slowing down for the night.
Yeah, the screens, that's a tough one in our house. I swear if I let them, they would be glued to a screen like 24/7.
Oh.
Oh, I hear you. It's definitely a common struggle, and it's tough because, the research is really clear about the negative impact of screens on sleep, especially close to bedtime.
Right.
That blue light, it messes with their melatonin production, which makes it so much harder to fall asleep.
It does.
So during that wind down time, try to encourage quieter activities like reading, taking a bath, listening to some calming music, even just, talking or telling stories can be really helpful.
It's amazing how much just shifting the energy in the house can kind of like make a difference.
Absolutely.
And you know what, those quieter activities, they're good for us grown-ups too.
So true.
Sometimes I need that reminder to like put my own phone down and just unwind.
Yes.
Okay, so we've covered morning routines, family dinners, bedtime rituals. Like, it's a lot.
It is.
So how do we actually make all of this stick long term? Because life gets busy, right? We get
Right.
tired, we fall back into old habits. Like, what's the secret sauce here?
Yeah. You're so right. It's not easy to change habits overnight. And I think, if there's one big takeaway from all of these articles, it's just to be patient,
Okay.
both with yourself and with your kids. I mean, building new routines, it takes time. It takes effort.
It does.
There are going to be good days. There are going to be not so good days. The key is just to keep coming back to it, even if you have to start small.
So progress over perfection.
Exactly.
Okay. I like that.
And, don't forget to make it fun.
Oh, yeah.
If it feels like a chore, it's not going to last.
Right.
Get creative, blast some music, have a dance party while you're tidying up.
Yeah.
Let the kids pick out a fun new toothbrush.
Yeah.
Turn bedtime stories into this whole silly ritual. It's really about finding what works for your family and making it your own.
That's such an important reminder. It shouldn't feel like another item on the to-do list.
Exactly.
Like, this is about making, small, sustainable changes that can make a really big difference in the long run. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, and it's clear that, building these healthy routines, it's about so much more than just like checking things off a list.
Right.
It's really about creating this more connected, more joyful, more balanced life for the whole family.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about creating those positive ripples that spread outward from our homes, out into the world. And it all starts with these small intentional steps.
I love this. So for our listeners out there who are feeling inspired, to make some positive changes, what's one small step that they can take today to get started?
Think about the area that you really want to focus on. Is it mornings? Is it meal times? Is it bedtimes? And just pick one small change that you can make. Maybe it's setting that consistent wake-up time. Maybe it's having breakfast together as a family. Maybe it's starting that wind-down routine an hour before bed. Remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Just start small, be consistent, and celebrate those little victories along the way. You've got this.
Awesome advice, as always. Thanks for diving into this with me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.